The grand ballroom was alive with the hum of rich, well-dressed people chatting, laughing, and sipping champagne. A string quartet played soft classical music in the background as glittering chandeliers hung from the ceiling. It was the night of the prestigious charity gala, an event that drew the city's elite. The society women, draped in designer gowns, admired themselves in the mirrors and exchanged gossip in hushed voices, their heels clicking on the marble floor. In the midst of this elite crowd stood Sandra Bullock, looking every bit the part. She wore a timeless, elegant black dress that hugged her figure, her hair styled in soft waves. Though she was a star, she didn't feel entirely at ease among the glitzy crowd. She had always been a bit of an outsider in these circles, despite her fame. Little did she know, this evening would not only change her perspective, but also reveal the true character of the people around her. Across the room, a group of society women stood in a circle, laughing loudly, their voices carrying across the room. Their designer gowns were as flawless as their manicured nails, their jewelry sparkled under the lights. They were the epitome of wealth and status, and they knew it. As they exchanged gossip, their eyes often wandered towards Sandra, whispering to each other with barely concealed disdain. Sandra may have been a star, but in their eyes, she was just another Hollywood actress, an outsider who didn't belong in their world of luxury and sophistication. One of the women, Vanessa, a well-known socialite, led the group with an air of superiority. She was the first to speak out loud. "Did you see who's here tonight?" Vanessa sneered, her eyes scanning the room, finally settling on Sandra. Sandra Bullock. Really, what's she doing here? Does she even know the first thing about this kind of event? I mean, look at her dress. It's so basic. The other women giggled behind their hands, barely able to hide their amusement. Vanessa's words stung, and Sandra felt her stomach churn, but she remained poised, trying to ignore the gossip. She wasn't new to judgment, but there was something particularly cruel in their tone that night. Sandra felt the sting of their words as she heard Vanessa's cruel remarks. Her heart sank, but she remained composed, clutching her champagne flute tightly. As the evening wore on, the women continued their gossip, all the while subtly casting judgment on Sandra's presence at the gala. They laughed about her basic style, her awkwardness in such an elite setting, and the fact that she didn't fit their idea of what someone of her status should be. Sandra tried to brush it off, but the humiliation crept into her thoughts like a shadow she couldn't shake. Then, just when Sandra thought it couldn't get any worse, the unthinkable happened. Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood icon, the man whose career had skyrocketed and whose kindness had made him a beloved figure, entered the room. The women's eyes widened in surprise and admiration. He was the last person anyone expected to see at a social event like this, and his presence immediately shifted the energy in the room. But there was one thing they didn't know. Keanu had heard every word they said about Sandra. Keanu, aware of the women's cruelty toward Sandra, decided it was time for them to learn a lesson in humility. He walked across the room, his steps deliberate, each one purposeful as the women watched him with wide eyes. Without hesitation, Keanu made his way toward Sandra. He greeted her with a warm, genuine smile that immediately put her at ease. "Sandra, you look absolutely stunning tonight," he said, his voice calm but sincere. "It's wonderful to see you here." Sandra blinked in surprise. Keanu Reeves, the Hollywood legend, was speaking to her as though she was the most important person in the room. It was a moment of pure kindness that she didn't expect, but it made her feel seen, valued, and respected. The women behind her watched in shock, unsure of what to make of this sudden interaction. Keanu, with his quiet confidence, had turned the tables without saying a word to them. The women, still processing Keanu's interaction with Sandra, began to realize something they hadn't anticipated. Keanu, in his quiet way, had humiliated them without ever raising his voice. The society women, who had once looked down on Sandra, were now left speechless. Keanu's actions spoke volumes. It wasn't wealth or status that earned respect. It was kindness and humility. As the night continued, the once elite women tried to engage with Sandra, but their earlier words echoed in their minds. They knew that Keanu had subtly exposed their vanity and cruelty.